For the king's high tea.
It's despicable.
I bet you Kale likes fruitcake.
I bet he
I'll
does.
bet that's what gave him cancer. I'll cut that part out.
No, you can totally keep
You
it.
can keep it in.
Okay.
Welcome to Recapping Romantasy, hot takes on hot literature. Who are we?
We are me, Emma.
I am Tabitha.
And I am Maura. Okay. Should we chatter? Do we need to chatter beforehand?
We chatted for so long already.
I know. God, we chatted for like 30 minutes. Okay.
We could have recorded all of that.
I had stuff to complain about.
So much to complain about. Okay, well, I guess we're going to complain a little bit more in this episode because this is another Sarah J. Maas episode where we're going to cover Throne of Glass. Yeah, so Throne of Glass is actually a Cinderella retelling.
I did not get that at all when I was reading it.
It's kind of, it's a squint and you may see it far in the distance. It's Disney's version specifically we're talking about here. While I was looking at Wikipedia for information on Throne of Glass, I discovered a little bit of information about Sarah J. Maas's background with this book. And apparently, while viewing the scene where the heroine flees the ball, Sarah J. Maas found the soundtrack, quote, way too dark and intense, unquote. And this led her to reimagine a number of details about the story itself. So, quote, the music fit much better when I imagined a thief. No, an assassin fleeing the palace. But who was she? Who had sent her to kill the prince? Who might the prince's enemies be? A powerful, corrupt empire, perhaps? Unquote. And, you know, while I was reading this, I kind of was in the back of my head like, that idea is way better than what you actually published, but, you know, whatever.
I would have rather read that book.
Same. But, you know, so Sarah J. Maas originally wrote Throne of Glass on fictionpress.com as Queen of Glass when she was roughly 16 years old.
That tracks.
Yeah, so this was like an early aughts thing, like maybe 2003 or 4. I was not paying much attention to Fiction Press back in 2003 or 4. I was a fanfic.
Oh yeah, me too.
Person,
.net.
yeah.
I didn't even know Fiction Press exists.
It did. Like apparently, it was really popular. So she totally overhauled it, got herself an agent with it, sold it to Bloomsbury in 2010, and it came out in August of 2012. So this is an old book. So old. I feel like ancient even talking about it. It's comped to the Hunger Games and Game of Thrones, like the TV series premiered in 2011, so that would make sense. And it's definitely young adult with absolutely no spice or hot, sexy scenes to be seen. Like it predates the term spice and new adult as a category. So I guess it's important to notice the publishing landscape at the time. In April 2012, The Selection by Kira Cass was released, and The Selection was comped to Divergent and Delirium, which both came out in 2011. And I really think The Selection is a hilarious book. If anybody's not ever read it,
I've never read it.
Okay, it's quite the book.
Okay.
But The Selection really. When you think about what Throne of Glass is actually about, The Selection is perfect. It's a perfect comp for it, and I feel like opportunities are missed. But anyway, Throne of Glass is basically bridging this genre divide that you can really see in like real time. This popularity leap from dystopian to fantasy, and you can kind of say that Throne of Glass maybe like kickstarted this huge glut of fantasy that we're still currently in, along with Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. And from what I understand, Leigh Bardugo and SJM are pretty good friends, so that makes sense. All right, so some ratings. This book has 1.2 million ratings on Goodreads.
Damn.
It's got a 4.19 star rating.
Really?
And it's no doubt helped by its stardom on TikTok and connection to ACOTAR. Yeah, so let's talk about these book covers, shall we?
Yeah, please.
I need to talk about the book covers. There are 3 in existence that that I'm aware of for like English markets. The first one, the hardcover from 2012, basically looks like Sarah J. Maas herself. Has a dagger strapped to her arm and is doing like a fist, like kind of looking like I can work out sometimes, but mostly looks like, I don't know, a runway model. And I mean, I think it's the most true to the book actually, because here like the main character looks like she's a princess trying to be an assassin and failing at it. And
it's very CW.
Yeah, there's also a blue castle behind it,
I think
which I'm
that's
sure
supposed to
is
be the glass part.
The glass castle, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then the paperback comes out the next year. And for the paperback, they totally overhauled it to something completely different, which is this like very pale, like almost alien like woman with very blonde white hair and two swords, like dressed decked out in leather, looking like really badass, and she's like walking toward you. And I'm like, I have no idea what's happening here. It has nothing to do with the book itself, I don't think. So I'm like, okay, two wildly different interpretations. And then for the reprint in 2023, we finally get this like stylistic cover, which is like a woman with a sword over her shoulder, and she's like kind of in the distance in like a doorway. And like, yeah, I guess, but like, it's definitely the best of the three, in my opinion. It actually made me pick it up and read it, but is it still misleading? Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, I liked the newest one the best in terms of art style, but I don't think any of these really sell what the book is about.
Indeed. And I think it's kind of like the book itself doesn't know what it's about, I would argue.
That is gonna say, man, if you asked me what I think should be on the cover, I don't think I could tell you.
I can't either. Like, I do think the first cover is the most like on point with what the book is about, like because reading this book, let me tell you, I had a hard time trying to figure out what on earth is happening here, but you know what,
I'm trying to think of like what I would put on the cover.
What would you put on the cover?
I feel like it'd be one of two things. It'd either be her with like Dorian and Kale in the background and maybe Nehemia, whatever her name is.
Like you want 4 people on the cover?
Well, her, but like, okay, she's like, I'm thinking those movie posters from like Marvel that have everyone in it.
Oh yeah.
But like the main person is the biggest.
You like this?
No, I don't. I don't like them, but those are like the people are what I remember the most about it. So either those 4 or like her and then all of the other like competitors in the background.
You know, you make a good point actually, because
Thank you.
now that I'm thinking about this, I would think it.
I am.
Here's the perfect cover of this book. It's a woman in a ball gown.
Oh.
Right? And she's got like the flowing blonde hair, and she's wearing a ball gown, and she's holding like a knife.
I would have just done the glass castle.
Yeah.
No people.
Okay.
I like the ball ground, but then that sounds more like the original thought of this story that S.J. Maas had.
Yeah.
You mean
right.
Cinderella?
Yeah.
Well, it has to be
Assassin Cinderella.
Yeah, Assassin
She's
Cinderella.
only in a ball gown like what, twice in the actual book?
I think so. Yeah, but she's definitely a woman who appreciates a ball gown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I see her in like a red silky dress, but yeah.
I mean, it could be a red silky dress. If you want red silk, we can go with red silk.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Right. So let's get into the book.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So chapter 1, we open with Selena Sardathian is our main character, and she is literally the best assassin ever, and is imprisoned in these mines for some reason. Important things to note going in here is that we know immediately that she's been betrayed and captured somehow, and that's all we really get about why anything is happening. Do you guys have any opinion?
This is just going to be a theme in the entire book, that we are constantly going to be told how badass she is, but never actually shown.
Yeah, I don't know when they talk about it, but it should have started with her trying to escape the prison that she's in. Like, that would have been a great example of, hey, look at how good I am. Look at my skills. Yeah. Instead, it's like her just walking, like being walked around the castle, or not castle, but the prison. Yes. Stupid.
Yeah. So, okay. The other 2 important things to note is that she thinks she's important enough to be executed by the royal guard.
Fancy.
Yeah. And then also she had been beautiful at one time, but now it doesn't matter. She's like, whatever. I am no longer pretty.
A year in the mines make you ugly, I guess.
Yeah. She's been in the mines for about a year.
Feels classist.
And we open up with her being like kind of marched through this mansion by a bunch of hooded dudes, and they're going up and down these stairwells and all around, and she's just like, I don't see the point of any of this because I'm memorizing the whole building and I'll be able to get out because I now have seen literally everything because no one bothered to blindfold me.
Like, and they know that she's the best assassin ever, so why wouldn't they put a bag over her
You would
head?
think they would do that, but you know, that's
not. They not have a spare bag? Like,
I didn't think to do that. So it turns out the head of the King's Guard or whatever is moving her around these fleets of like fancy rooms with chandeliers, and outside this fancy room with the chandeliers you can literally see slaves moving around and like hear them being whipped and stuff. Like this is what I guess the royalty like looking at when they visit this mansion. So also there are like 14 guards here. They are ruthless soldiers trained to kill from birth, and so she immediately thinks like, this is it, they're gonna kill me. But no, inside this fancy room with the chandeliers is a handsome young man, and he is the crown prince of I, in the back of my head, when I was reading this, automatically said Otterland, because that's what it sounded like in the audiobook. So
That's how they said it in the
yeah,
other.
this is the land of otters, and so that's just where I am with that. This is Otterland. So Otterland, the Prince of Otterland is here.
It's spelled in the book like a darlin, but no, they say Otterland.
It's Adarlan, but it really sounds like Otterland.
Yeah, I said a darlin in my head the whole time, but then it made me sound like the whole country was a southern gent.
Yeah.
A darlin?
Yeah, a darlin.
I don't know what the accent was.
So, okay, we meet the prince. He's just sort of up there, like, glaring at her from his throne. And we find out that one of the guards who's, like, dragged her in there is the Royal Guard Supreme. Or his name is Captain Cale Westfall, but his name is spelled Chaol. But in the audiobook, again, it's pronounced kale, like the leafy green.
Yeah, it looks more like coal or maybe chaol.
It's very weird. I don't like it.
I had a really long rant here, but part of our conversation before this is I think I'm dyslexic. I was going to go on this huge rant about how no one cares about linguistics again. I even looked up like a list of words, of English words that have the A and the O sound in it, so I could like figure out like aorta, all that stuff. And then I realized that his name is basically just chaos with an L at the end. Mm-hmm. So chaos, kale kind of makes sense. Then if you just say it quick enough, it's kale.
And I feel could have just named him Kale.
Yeah,
spelled
kale.
like the vegetable.
Absolutely. I completely agree. But I was just feeling really defeated. And now, like, I should have been tested as a child for some sort of, like, reading disability. And it was just missed.
Yeah.
No, a
No
lot
child
of
left
Americans
behind,
are bad
I
at
guess.
reading.
It's
that's
totally
true.
cool, you guys. It doesn't matter because Kale is pretty. Okay, let's
yeah.
just focus
That's all
on
we
the
need
pretty.
to care about. Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on.
Sorry.
He's pretty, but so is the crown prince. And they try to make her kneel in front of this dude, and who's like, I really genuinely don't care, and I'm bored. The prince is named Dorian. He is literally wearing a gold crown, like right now, currently wearing a gold crown. Has striking blue eyes and raven black hair, and he's achingly handsome. He's no older than 20, and Selena is upset that he is pretty because royalty should be ugly. Selena herself has amazing color-changing eyes with gold rims. I don't know why we get that information here, but we do. They talk about the time she tried to commit suicide via mind guard, when he wants to look at her amazing eyes and comments on how bad she smells. From what he can see, she
What a
has
charmer.
scars that will need to be covered by the dresses. And this comment about the dresses alarms her. So she presumes that they've been keeping her here to test her. And, of course they are. So Selena thinks that she can seduce this prince, but that doesn't go anywhere. So he tells her, like, I am offering you your freedom if... And here's the rundown of where this book is going, right? So the king, his father, wants a champion. Dorian is recruiting her as someone to aid the empire, aka they need a lackey. If she can become this champion, she will get her freedom after 6 years of service. 6 seems like a really arbitrary number. I don't know where that was coming from. But the catch is the position is not being offered to her. It will be a competition to train in the glass castle and then compete in a duel. And if she wins, then she gets to be the assassin, like caps, for the kingdom. There's some extra deal where she might be able to go do it in 5 years. But if she can't win this competition, she's going straight back to the mines.
I thought the competition was like to the death. So I thought it was kind of weird that she was getting sent back to the mines, because I thought if she lost, she'd just be dead. So
They might as well.
Yeah, it was not apparently that cutthroat. Like, it was one of those, like, you'll simply be dismissed and taken back. It's not a win or die situation.
Oh.
Yeah. So she's given a silky bed. She goes into euphoria at being clean. But she's generally unimpressed with the food she's served after this, because she throws it all up anyway. She's been used to, like, gruel, basically, and dirty water, so she can't keep it all down.
What is up with Sarah J. Maas making her female leads barf?
Okay, I had this thought reading Fate Inked in Blood or something. That one has a lot of throw up in it too.
Oh, good.
Maybe,
Oh, cool. Something to look forward to.
I mean, maybe I just don't throw up enough as a person. Like, I feel like
I haven't thrown up since 2017.
I think
And before that, it was 2012.
I think the last time I threw up was like 2019.
I get norovirus like once a year, so yeah.
I was going to
Okay,
say,
yeah.
I don't have kids, though. So.
I
Yeah,
had a bout where I got like food poisoning 3 years in a row, and so I'm like terrified of leftovers now. But I just am not a throw up person.
Yeah. Sarah J. Maas's characters do barf quite a lot, and it's definitely a choice that she makes.
I mean, I guess it's better than shitting your pants, but like, can't you just feel nervous without barfing?
Is it better
Than shitting your pants? You don't have to like walk around in it. When's the last time you shit your pants?
I'm sorry. If we're just like fundamentally comparing, would you rather throw up or have diarrhea? I would rather have diarrhea.
Oh, but I said shit your pants. I'm thinking literal shit in your pants.
Well, where am I throwing up? Am I throwing up into the toilet or just like on myself?
Oh, I guess I've never thrown up on my body. I've always like leaned over.
Well, I've been thrown up upon because I've had children.
Oh, you have children.
Yeah, like went right down into my bra.
That's
so
lovely.
yeah, that's a really disgusting experience.
Yeah, I've been thrown up on too from
Yeah.
nannying. I was really pissed. It was like the first week, and I didn't know what to do, so I literally like picked up the kid and we just walked over as he was actively throwing up to the bath, and I just put him in there. Yeah. And he was like crying and I was just like, I don't know what to do. So I obviously don't have children right now.
It's definitely a lesson in how you will handle bodily fluids.
Yeah. I mean,
I would be lying if I didn't say that was one of the major reasons I didn't have kids.
No, I think that's-
I don't do barf.
Yeah. No one should really do barf, and here we are.
sorry.
But you know who does barf? Sarah J. Maas.
Oh God, all the time.
Do you think if I ever get a chance to meet her, I'm going to ask her that question?
Yeah, I think that would be definitely.
What
a
if she
question
has
that
a
I have.
fetish?
No, well, no.
I don't know if she has a fetish about barf.
Just like, why are your characters constantly barfing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be.
You should ask her if she has a fetish.
Does she have really bad acid reflux or something? Like,
Okay, here's what we're gonna do. The next event she does, where there's like literally, I don't know, tens of hundreds of people there.
We're gonna go.
We're gonna go.
and we respect you as a person and as an author. We have a couple questions about
We
the
do.
choices you make in your
We
writing.
do.
What's the deal with the barf?
Yeah, we love your books, but we want to know what the deal is with the barf. So okay, let's move on to the the fact that Selena herself.
Do we have to?
Yeah, we do. I can't do this anymore with the barf. We have to move on. Okay. So Selena is emaciated. She can't. She's been, not eating well, obviously, working in these mines, and but. Hilariously, the thing that she picks up most is that her breasts are no longer magnificent.
It's literally the first thing she notices in the mirror. She's like, in the mirror, first thing, oh, my breasts are small now.
Yeah,
Sad.
It's very sad. But anyway, they get on the road because they have to go to this place called Rifthold, which is where the castle of glass is. And she and Kale are going there. It's got like, I don't know, for some reason I was getting a lot of Willow vibes. Like there's dogs and there's like horses and they're all like just trooping along to this castle. Here we get some more details. He's 22, she's 18, so he is now definitely a love interest potential. Tries to annoy him for some information, and she determines that he's a lord. He offers to gag her because she won't stop annoying him.
Hot.
And yeah, very hot. He appears to be a man of quiet mystery, and she's a chatterbox. So that's all, great, good, get some banter there.
Mm-hmm.
So we eventually get some exposition background on Selena. The king of assassins found her half drowned and brought to his keep to train her. We are given almost no information about this other than a few minor details. So if you want this to be an assassin story, I'm sorry to say you opened the wrong book. Anywho, the king of assassins wouldn't let her go home. Then the real actual king burned literally everything down. Like he burned everything like magical, I guess. So she's an orphan and she has a new name. So now we don't really know who she is and we don't really know much of her backstory. Selena is not her real name. I believe she knows her real name, but we're not going to get that.
Did she pick her own name then?
I don't think that's ever said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot in this book that we just don't know, that we just aren't told the information.
We're going to talk about this later, but I just have this question. Why are the assassins in this story like not a secret? Like,
well, she got caught.
She did. She got caught. Something happened previously. So, okay, I guess we should pause here and say that this is a long series, and this is not technically speaking the first book that super fans like to start with.
Oh.
They like to start with the prologue, because the prologue apparently lays a lot of groundwork for what happens in the first book.
Yeah.
That was published well before the prologue. So I, however, am someone who's going to start with the very first published book, because that's how I roll.
S.J. Maas says to do it that way.
Yeah, so this is what I'm doing. Like, so I walked into the first book with no knowledge of what happened to Selena or why any of it happened, and she certainly doesn't tell us much about it. So there's a lot of mystery around her. No one knows who she is. No one knows what her background is. And this book says nothing about it the entire time.
That is just retconning.
It is retconning. I would agree.
That is just you listening to your audience say, but this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And being like, actually, I thought it all out. Here it is.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of authors have been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a really easy way to make your audience happy. And yeah, it's like if you have like an audience that's stuck with the series, I think they're like, oh, here's an easy way to sell a book, and we'll give you a prologue to this massively famous story. Anyway, they're apparently in some old fairy forest now. And in this world, they got rid of all the fae. So there used to be fae in this world, and now there are not any fae.
Every single book I have read where the Fae left the world is about the return of the Fae. So let's just like bank on that happening.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine we can. So we get a little bit more about Kale's brown eyes here. They are apparently a little bit golden.
I'm sure the gold is in Fleck form.
Yeah, I don't think she actually gets into the flex, but we can assume.
She hadn't learned yet.
Yeah, this is her 16-year-old self. She's kind of getting there, So we learned that the king banned magic, so it's gone along with the fae. And they burned all the magic users too, so that's pretty dark. And then she goes to bed. She comes back out though, and she finds these infant-sized footsteps outside. So we can confirm that there are still some fairies around.
I say that is a bold assumption. Might be raccoons.
Could be. Yeah, you don't know. So they do traveling for like 2 weeks, and they're mostly miserable the entire time. But, they finally kind of get to this glass castle. And I have to say, a glass castle seems impractical.
It's really impractical. Like, can you see through every room? Like, don't you need secrecy for politics, which I'm assuming happens in a castle?
The interior walls were like frosted glass. Like,
it's never described.
You would think, but they're not described.
But also, what if you're bathing in a glass castle? Do they just not have bathrooms in that part of the castle?
So apparently only
curtains.
Foul. You just take a huge dump, everyone smells it.
Apparently only part of the castle is glass. There's an older part that's stone.
No, I know that part. But
maybe that's where they do all the bathing and like the political stuff.
Or is this part of the, time frame when people were very anti-bathing?
You know what?
Where isn't it like in? I'm looking at Tabitha because I feel like she would know.
This is a fantasy world.
I know, but I just always assume they're based on some point of time in reality.
Oh, I think.
Well,
I think they're very clean.
People in the Middle Ages, the European Middle Ages, were actually relatively clean. They bathed fairly often. It was the early modern era, so like after what we consider the medieval era.
Yeah.
Before the colonial era, I guess is a way to say it. We got real gross. We decided to like see what happened when we didn't bathe for a couple centuries. So that's the gross period. Before
that's what I'm thinking of.
We were gross, but we were trying harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we then kind of switched to Dorian's point of view and see Selena through his viewpoint. And so now we're given more information that she's beautiful, but sad and strange. He's very obviously interested in her, but, a little wary of her at the same time because she's apparently haunting his dreams.
The POV switches were super weird.
They were. It was really hard to follow the POV switches because they happened constantly and there was really no rhyme or reason for them and they were not labeled.
Well, Selena talks about like all sorts of different stuff. The boys only ever talk about her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have no interests other than Selena. So they enter the city of Rifthold and every woman literally in the city is giving Selena the stink eye, and Selena revels in it. She's like rubbing salt in the wound, and like Kale basically tells her to quit it. She banters with him a little bit about running away and him killing her, which is like, that's cute. You guys are just adorable with your enemies to lovers energy. So Dorian tries to charm her a little, and she's like, absolutely not. No time for this.
No. I liked Kale more than Dorian throughout this book. I feel like that's the wrong take because I know this is an S.J. Maas book and I know like the first love interest is never really the one. I was not a person who at ACOTAR was like, oh my God, I love Tamlin. So, but I'm nervous. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth here and say, I like Kale, which I actually know I'm putting my foot in my mouth because I've seen way too much fan art already.
Have we all not seen the fan art? We all know what's going to happen.
I've posted it for a TikTok already, so I know.
I think both of these men are extremely boring.
Yeah, I did too. I thought they were really boring. Like, I had absolutely no feelings about Dorian whatsoever that weren't boredom or disdain, honestly. Like, if you're going to give me a prince, you had best give me an interesting one because, like, you need to keep my attention. And guess what? And Dorian is so far like soft hands, perfect hair, spoiled child. And I'm like, nope, not you.
Yeah. Who do I want here? The rich kid or the rule follower?
Yeah.
Those are my choices.
Tough decision.
I at least like the dynamic of rule follower Kale with like rule breaker.
Yeah,
Selena.
I like that dynamic, and I think he does like he has to learn to break the rules by the end of the book. So that's at least something that happens that I kind of enjoyed.
There's more like interesting potential with those two.
Yes, there definitely is. Dorian was by far the less interesting of the two.
It's white bread.
Yeah, we get a description of Selena's room because her room is in the stone part of the castle, which I think was kind of a downer for me. I was like, but you have a castle of glass and here we are in the stone part. But okay, whatever. She's like, it's so beautiful, and then she immediately tries to turn things into weapons, but most hilariously the billiard balls are the things that she thinks about the most. So she dresses up and looks spectacular. So we're back into like, this is where I'm like, the ball gowns. She is definitely a ball down girl.
Yeah.
Her personal servant shows up, and the personal servant's name is Philippa Spindlehead, which is the most Disney godmother name ever.
It really is.
Dorian, point of view again, he's talking about his terrible dad, about his like bad decisions and his insubordinates, and Daddy tells Dorian that Selena is dangerous and not to court her. Dorian talks back to Daddy, and Daddy hits him and tells him to obey. And here I had to like stop, and I'm like, wait, why is Selena a love interest, and why on earth would he be courting her? He is a prince. What?
Because in an act of teenage rebellion, Dorian is going to fuck her or completely fall in love with her, right?
Yeah, I was so confused. I was like, if he's a prince, there's no way on earth that he would ever court this woman, aside from the fact that he might just want to have sex with someone.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing I could think of.
And they're all like teenagers. They all act like teenagers, even though only one of them is really a teenager. Like, that's why he's doing this. It's just teenage angst.
Oh yeah,
fuck
100%.
you, Dad. I am gonna date the bad girl. Like, I am gonna drink a beer.
Absolutely. Selena's Dorian's beer.
Yeah. The natty light that you got from like the park.
Oh yeah, the watered down beer. Okay.
Yeah.
So Kale and Selena take a walk and talk about Dorian's younger brother, who's apparently a psychopath. I'm assuming this will come up later, but it certainly doesn't really come up in this book. Everyone is very sure that glass is as sturdy as stone and steel, which is objectively incorrect.
No, I had this thought that maybe it's like actually made out of diamonds or something. I don't know.
It's probably magically
or maybe
enhanced.
it's fantasy glass.
Yeah, it's fantasy glass for sure. There's no way that this is like sturdy as stone and steel. It's like you'd have to say like, oh, actually it's magic glass.
Yeah.
So anywho, they find a gargoyle pointing at a mark on a path, and Selena is like, what is this? And Kale is like, I don't know, it's dumb, just keep moving. And then she gets all moony-eyed at library doors, and Kale's like, God, fine, I'll take you inside. And so mostly this chapter is Selena pointing at things and asking, what's this? And Kale being annoyed with her because,
like a toddler.
Yeah, I know. She's like, what's this? Like, stop it. I don't know. And so basically we get the library porn chapter. Millions of volumes in this library. And she basically turns into Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I'm not trying to play into stereotypes and say you can't be like a cool assassin and like to read, but this facet of her personality feels like when authors write a piece of themselves into a book. I read this it was so bad, but I read this hockey romance recently where the girl reads monster smut, and the way that she describes it and the way that she defends it to her boyfriend was just like, even for a contemporary romance, so recent. It was like literally pulled from something off of TikTok. I was like, I know that this author had this fight in real life and thought this would be an interesting thing to add.
Yeah, I think, lots of things from authors' lives do end up in books, but I think the most interesting thing about Throne of Glass to me is that there's a very strong argument to be made that Selena is the author, like she's an author insert for Sarah J. Maas. And it's often something that very young authors do, and given that she was 16 when she first drafted this, and how this hits certain tick boxes for me, it really smacks as a Mary Sue. So
yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am with Selena in general, at least for this book. Maybe things are different as things go.
Did you know that the root word for gargoyle and gargle, like to gargle mouthwash,
Please
are
continue.
the same?
I'm sure.
Because it is a gargoyle if it is used as a water spout on a building.
Oh.
If it doesn't have the water spout aspect and it's just a statue, it's called grotesque.
Oh, God, I love that so much.
Do you remember that gargoyle show on Disney?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were like, never mind.
Were you going to say they were hot?
Continue.
This is a thing I've heard from many people online.
You can say it.
We didn't watch it a lot, but I feel like they were just too good looking for gargoyles. I never got like the tingles from them, if you will, but Maura just put her hand over her
Like, I can't look at
face.
you anymore. No,
No, this
even
is a
after
big-
I was like, tell me, Abba, tell me.
No, this is definitely a big thing I've heard people
Yeah,
say
it's a
online.
thing.
It
I
was
know
some
it
sort
is.
of awakening for them in the 90s.
Who was your cartoon awakening?
My cartoon awakening?
Mine was not the gargoyle. It was probably some anime. Maybe Darien or Tuxedo Mask from Sailor Moon.
I'd have to think long and hard about it. I mean, I was one of the kids who was definitely disappointed when the Beast turned human.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
for
That was
sure.
my first
Yeah.
definite, like, this is not what I wanted it to be.
I just can't believe he was blonde.
Yeah, I recently saw something on TikTok where they, yeah, did you see
they
that
redo
one?
it.
Yeah, I showed
He's
you
like got a beard and hairy
And
and
it made
brown hair.
It made me think, at the very least, what they needed to do when the Beast transformed was like give him stubble and a hairy chest. It
Yeah.
was too much of a
Yeah.
transition. That boy was smooth.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
guess my first like experience with cartoon attraction is disappointment.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted it to be.
I didn't realize I was into it
Uh-huh.
until it was taken away
I
from
know
me.
until it wasn't even there. It wasn't something I could even have. And like no, like my poor little lizard brain was like, that's not what I wanted. Oh my gosh. Okay, so after the library incident where she's like, I don't know, belling around in her library and Kale's just like, God damn it. Selena writes Dorian a simpering letter asking to read some of his books in this massive like state library. I don't know why Dorian gets to decide this, but anyway. Dorian sends her a personal selection of books so they can discuss them together like a weird little book club. So now if you thought that this book was going to be about assassins and a really cool competition, and you're wondering how we wound up in a book club with the prince, I also was wondering this as I was in chapter 8. So lots of questions here.
Yeah, you guys talked about this a couple minutes ago, but I think I have read one romance author that makes her characters not also be bookworms. I feel like that's very rare in these kind of books, and I know it's because so much romance is meant to be reader insert. So, of
Yeah.
course, the reader is somebody who likes reading.
Yeah.
Therefore, the main character is somebody who likes reading. But it does feel awkward in this case.
Yeah.
yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Like, it's out of nowhere.
She's supposed
Yeah.
to, and again, I'm not trying to play into stereotypes, but she's supposed to be cool,
She
like a cool assassin. I'm not saying you can't be cool and read. I like to think I'm cool. After I, talked about the Gargoyle TV show and anime in this same sentence.
in your sexual awakening.
Yeah.
Well, it just
But-
seems lazy. Like you have this character that has this really unique background. I mean, she's basically Arya Stark.
Yeah.
She goes and learns how to be an assassin and then comes back.
But Arya Stark
does
is
the
not into
thing.
reading.
But that's the
No.
thing. You don't like end Game of Thrones seeing Arya like asleep on the couch with a book on her face.
Right.
Right. And I
She's
mean,
got
that,
shit to do.
that
Yeah.
would have been fine, honestly, if she wanted to be a reader.
it's
but
just such a
like,
stereotype.
It is just a stereotype. And I guess Arya is also a stereotype. So it's just like, we need to keep to our stereotypes, okay?
We do.
Don't bother me about this. So, I mean, basically at this point, she eavesdrops on some snotty girl who wants Dorian's attention and calls Selena a harlot. I think this girl is Caltaine, who we will be seeing more of later.
Again, just more proof that I might be dyslexic. I read that girl's name as Caitlin the whole time.
It's she
fair.
might as well. Caltaine was such a strange name. I like Caitlin better.
Yeah.
Even though I know a person named Caitlin who is lovely.
I do too.
I really, let's just say Caltaine.
Okay. I mean, that's her actual name. So
Yeah. So naturally, Selena is being mistaken as Dorian's lover and not a raging killing machine. So again, if you thought you were in a book about an assassin, you are not. This is like the selection meets Akatar.
How does not everybody in this castle know who these people are? Like, there's all of these assassins here.
Not only that, but she is the kingdom's most famous assassin.
that's what I mean. I thought she was supposed to be a secret, but everyone knows who she
Everybody
is.
knows who she is, and like at the same time, they're like, no one knows who
And
you are.
they're just like, we won't say your name, and no one will know.
Yeah.
Like, as if there's not descriptions of what she looks like out there. I don't know.
So Kale drags her out of her room to go meet the king, and Selena has a visceral hatred for the glass part of the castle.
Same.
Yeah, I know, me too. We're all here with you, Selena. Kale tells her to how to talk to the king, with the stakes being she'll get murdered if she upsets the king, but then at the same time, he says the king is just a man and ensures her that she's not going to be tested right now. Then Kale's like, you look pretty. And they enter the throne room.
Smooth, Kale.
Yeah. So the throne room has no windows, just a wall of glass, which I have to say, is that not a window?
I had the same thought as Tabitha's. Maybe the whole thing is opaque.
Yeah.
And then I thought again about like, what about the bathrooms? Like, I don't know.
What is the bathroom situation?
I just needed this to be described way more.
I did. Yeah, I needed more of that. There's a fire in the fireplace that's greenish, which Selena finds weird, and I think is just another like magic exists for certain people in this world, even though, you know, they claim it doesn't. Anyway, the king is a petty bitch to her, and he's like, now that you've all deigned to arrive, I will now explain why we're all here. So her entire competition is there, like everyone who's going to compete against her for this great assassin title. They're all men picked for muscle, not brains. The man addresses them, tells them that they'll be training and tested once a week for 13 weeks. And he's like, some of you will die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
And Tabitha would get that reference if she's ever watched Shrek, which, have you yet?
I have not, and I don't plan to.
It's Tabitha, you're missing out on so many references, so many cultural moments, so many memes.
Apparently, everybody involved in this competition have to be paragons of virtue during it. Otherwise, he's going to stake them to the front gate. I don't get why this is a thing, but in any case, the king yells at them to be grateful, and then Dorian decides to get the hell out, and the king's like, be gone, all of you. I don't want to discuss anything with you anymore. Dorian tells Selena that you were totally convincing, and Kale's like, you were kind of okay, I suppose. And then Dorian gives her an alter ego for some reason, because I'm like, again, you are the most famous assassin in the kingdom. Surely someone has seen you and knows who you are, but we're going to give you an alter ego.
Okay, I'm interrupting. I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about Arya Stark. Maybe it's kind of like, it's not No Face, but the people who trained Arya, No Man, No Name or something.
I think it might be No Face.
No, well, that's from Spirited Away. So
or no, it was like the Man of No Faces. Or something like that.
I don't know. But I
didn't read the books.
I just watched the show. So, but maybe it's like everyone knows about them, but no one knows what they look like. Maybe that's just everyone knows that the most famous assassin, her name is Selena.
Maybe.
But they don't know what she looks like, because there was like a line somewhere about how everyone thought she was going to be like some old lady.
It's been so long since I've read it. I can't confirm. It's sad.
I don't know. I think it's a little stupid that the most famous, the best assassin is also the most famous assassin.
The very most famous.
Yeah.
Next day, Kale forces her to wake up, and her action is very whiny teen. She's like, I stayed up until 4 a.m. reading.
Very, very disciplined, just like an assassin trained from the age of like 8. What I expect from them.
It's not like she has a big competition.
Yeah. So they show up at some training room, and again, we get she's the best ever, but get absolutely no proof to this. And she spars with Kale with swords after she's talked big, but Kale wins and is like, you have skills, but you're undisciplined. So I'm not super sure at this point how good she is, or as good as people are claiming. This random sheltered guard can basically beat her in a game of swords. Okay. So they meet up with the rest of the competitors, and there are too many to remember, so don't bother with, I'm not going to talk about them. No one takes her seriously because she's using an alias. And again, we have to pause one more time and say, like, what makes a world famous assassin? Is being a world famous assassin a realistic thing? Does anybody know a world famous assassin?
James Bond, but like I feel like we're not supposed. That's his alter ego.
Yeah,
like no one really knows.
Also, he's not an assassin; he's a secret agent.
Yeah,
he's a secret agent.
Potato.
He's only famous because like he has movies made about a fictional character, right? Like,
right.
We think he's famous, but like in his world, he's not famous.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like only the evil villains know him.
Nobody knows who he is in every day, and everyone's like, oh, the most famous assassin in the kingdom. I'm
right.
like, this is not a celebrity status.
The whole thing was very weird.
It's so strange. So Kale gives her a pep talk, and because apparently she's really bad at swords. And training the first training is running. So some people are doing it shackled, and she's running, and because she's so like out of shape, she throws up. And Kale is just staring at her while she does it, and I don't know if that was supposed to be sexy or what he was going on.
I think this might be a fetish.
I've never thrown up from exercise. My sister ran in high school, and I did swimming, and my parents only understand running. I guess swimming's a complicated sport, but they were like, you're not throwing up after you swim, so you're not working out hard enough. Because when you run like marathons,
that's fucked up.
I know.
It is.
I go to therapy, but But have you ever thrown up from?
I almost threw up after running, or in the middle of running, but it was a half marathon, so
Yeah.
I was tired, and I'm not a half marathoner, so
No, I also made the point that if you throw up in a pool, the whole pool has to close.
it does. Yeah.
So, maybe not the best advice to give your 17-year-old daughter.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I've dealt with it in therapy.
Okay, so we find out that Selena hates fish. So we're like bombarded with useless information.
So much-
Kale tells her that she smells like fish. So they're like bantering, I guess. This is something that a 16-year-old would think of. Anyway, they talk about books, and then he's like, enjoy your day of leisure. And she finally does something assassinating, and that she's like kind of training when he comes back because she's doing chin-ups. I'm like, good for you, Selena. Finally doing something that would consider training. So she meets a woman named Nehemia, who's princess of Eelway.
Yes, it was pronounced in the book as Eelway.
Okay.
Eels and otters.
Yeah. So she thinks the castle is dumb, quote, a structure of madness,
Agreed.
unquote. Yeah, it is. It is.
Also, I would say that Nehemia and Eelway are sort of like African coded.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely they are. Yeah. So Elway, or Eelway, I guess, is a colonized country of wherever we are. Otterland, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a colonized country of Otterland, and Nehemia is there to study Reptold's culture or get married, either one. Otterland burned Nehemia's country, and she's very, I hate everything here. So I'm sure she doesn't really want to get married to these people, but she's here to study them, which is not at all concerning. We learn that Selena doesn't trust girls due to that time in the desert. And that's really all the information we get.
It's very cool.
When is she met?
Love
I don't
that.
remember her being in a desert at all.
It's a reference to something that happened earlier, and they don't
in the
tell
prologue.
you. Yeah.
We'll find out in the prologue.
Okay.
3 books from
books
now.
3, yeah.
So at one point, what is it? Nehemia says, "Peace be with you."
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they're like talking in Nehemia's language. I don't know what the language is called.
I would assume it's
But-
Arabic.
Yeah, probably. But they say peace be with you and with you as their goodbye, which is literally from church.
Yeah. Well, that's salam alaikum. It's
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is why I was just like, is this Muslim coded? Is what it is.
I
And
mean, yeah, reading this, I just got like pulled out of the story completely. And I was like, Catholicism? Christianity?
yeah.
Yeah,
here?
they could have at least mixed it up and said, goddess be with you.
Or like, may the force be with you. Something slightly
Something
different.
else. Yeah, something that isn't what we have in our world would be better. Anyway, we get a Kale point of view where something ate the dogs. So they have these hunting dogs that Dorian has, and something ate a few of them. And he's like, well, that's worrying.
And that's it.
That's it. We get another training sequence. Everyone hates this dude named Cain.
And not to talk about religion again, but of course his name is Cain.
Yeah.
Like the only more evil option from names in the Bible would have been like, what, Judas?
Yeah, that's really the only other option. There are no other evil people
Judas
in the
would have been
Bible.
even more obvious.
That's what I'm saying. Or like just devil.
Maybe Herod.
Yeah.
What was it? No,
She's
like
so clever.
like the Ramses or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bill, a random man named Bill.
God,
Can we just, Bill is one of the competitors who's found dead. He's been ripped open. Like he is mauled and destroyed.
Cute.
Yeah. But that's all we get about it. It's just like, they just say like, oh yeah, Bill, he was found ripped open and destroyed in a stairwell.
Moving on.
Moving on. So we transition to another reading chapter. They just go straight back into reading. Murder, reading. And then Kale's complaining that he's had a long day, and he reveals that he's known Dorian forever, and Selena tells him that she was forced to break her own hand as an assassin. So I guess we got a little bit of detail there at her assassin school.
Similar stories.
Yeah. Anyway, the first test comes up, and it's archery, and she wins so big.
Yeah, even though she wasn't supposed to win, Kale was like, please don't show off. And she just couldn't help it. She had to. This is the only time where I felt like, oh, maybe she is that world famous assassin that we've been told about.
Yeah. So we get some scar stories from Kale, and there's like, she tells him about this rape story that like she had to avenge this girl who got raped in the mines. Then a champion tries to make a run for it and gets killed. So you got to stay in this competition or badness will befall you. We get a Dorian point of view chapter now where he critiques his mother. Like, she's pretty, but old.
So rude.
So old. You, basically. And she's like, look, I know I'm old, so you need to get it together and get married. And they discuss all the women options.
And he's like another bored rich kid. Boo hoo.
Yeah, as someone who is pretty solidly anti-aristocracy. What the fuck is the appeal of marrying a prince? That sounds like a miserable experience. Well, look at the royal family.
I know. Yeah. Look at poor Meghan Markle. I'm like, Meghan, you could have gotten out,
look at what they did to Princess Diana.
She's getting her karma, though.
Look at all the women who've like gotten murdered because their husband, the king, got bored of them.
I know. Yeah, so many. And there's another girl who's just like, me next.
You know, I wouldn't peg you as someone who's anti-aristocracy because you went to see the king's coronation.
She did.
That is not. I poorly timed a trip to London. Thank you.
And then she went and had high tea and specifically requested for the king's high tea.
That part is true, though. I ate his gross little fruit cake.
Did you? I thought you didn't.
Well, we each took a bite of it and we're like, what is with this country? And putting dried fruit and stuff.
Man, yeah, England is a whole other like world. Okay, so Dorian goes and obsesses over Selena the more because, like, sweaty though she was beautiful. And they banter sexily. So now she's having some sexy thoughts about Dorian. And he's teaching Nehemia about fencing. And Kayla's like, how dare this happen? And I don't know. This was a really boring chapter. But basically fencing, Nehemia fences, I guess.
Yeah, and then someone says, I hate you.
Yeah.
And I recently discovered this I'll talk about this, I'm sure, in A Fate Inked in Blood. Man, I can't tell you the last time I've told someone I hate you in like serious anger. It just felt very like teenage angst. So now I've decided every time someone says that, it just feels like they're 13.
Yeah.
So I guess it makes sense that she was 16 when she wrote this.
She was.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue with this book is that this character obviously did not have a typical childhood and had to grow up very quickly. I feel like she should be way more mature than this. Mm-hmm. Like, she's getting into this competition and should be like, okay, I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to get this done. I'm going to be free. This is my chance out of here. But she keeps getting distracted by boys. It just seems like that would have been a more interesting story rather than the standard whiny and kind of lazy teen who isn't like the other girls.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that.
I mean, I thought for a moment when she says that line later on, like, I can't believe I'm just obsessed with boys. And I'm like, well, you've been in prison for a year. So maybe.
Well, there's one thing about like being horny.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like not compartmentalizing that.
Yeah. No, I think that Selena is mostly just horny. And I think like with the parameters of this book and the fact that the author was so young when she wrote it and it was 2012 when it came out, it got pushed into she's in love with them.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it was just like how everything was at the time. She couldn't just be horny.
Yeah,
she needed to be in love.
Got it.
Yeah. So, okay. We get a Kaltain point of view for some reason. This book is obsessed with engagements for what was supposed to be a bloody competition. And she tells Pennington, this, I guess, one of the king's friends who also has, like, I can't remember. I think Cain was his competitor. Mm-hmm. She tells Pennington that Selena is in love with Dorian.
Yeah, we have to go into Kaltain's point of view because she, like, gets possessed or something later. And we need to see that.
It then goes into what appears to be an omniscient point of view. Like, I'm really confused about this part of it where Kale and Dorian are discussing Selena and who she'll fall in love with. Like,
so stupid.
Yeah, and then they kind of talk a little bit about that dead competitor, but like they are way more interested in who Selena is going to fall in love with. And I'm just like, again, I'm like, she is not supposed to fall in love with either of you.
No,
she is an assassin.
Kill people. Yeah.
So we skip to Selena yet again reading, and
reading about reading is so boring.
I know, and she's like, quote, how did she go from most feared prisoner to this sappy mess, unquote. And I'm like, it's probably because you're in a Sarah J. Maas book that she wrote when she was 16, but you know.
And you've been in prison and now like you're not malnourished.
Yes.
And your body wants to procreate.
Mm-hmm. So now we're playing the piano and she's thinking about this person named Sam.
Does she have a piano in her like
I think
room?
she does. Oh. Yeah. So she's talking about a Sam person and how she got captured, which is she kind of alludes to being betrayed, I'm assuming by a woman because she hates women. And then Dorian interrupts with his point of view to say her curves are enticing, and then they banter, verbally spar, and she tells him that her past lover, i.e. Sam, died. So sad. So we get another test chapter, which is capture the flag and also climb 90 feet up a tower to do it. And she has to save Knox from falling, ... And then next chapter, she manages it. Then she banters some more with Kale because we have to banter some more. And they find yet another dude who's been brutally murdered, but no one seems to care.
I know. Yeah, I know these people are like low lifes and criminals, but everyone is super blasé about these like gruesome murders happening in the castle that they're all living in. They're just like, ugh, they were shitty people. Okay, moving on.
I know. It's so weird. It's like, oh, wow, some beast ripped them apart right here in the middle of the castle where we all live. Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, these are like horror story murders, right? Like blood up the walls,
Yeah.
like mass of like flesh. Like that's what we're dealing with here. And everyone like, you know, it happens.
Organs outside of a body. We don't care.
Yeah. Selena wakes up from bad dreams and Kale flirts with her and they talk about Samhain and which is like the fall harvest festival, and it turns out that another test is coming up soon and she whines about it because she's still sore from the last test. Then she agrees to teach Nehemia her language on her off time because she has a shit ton of it, and they discuss the word marks. I guess this is something that was around the gargoyles from earlier.
Yeah, you don't remember that one line where she's like, Kale, what is that? And he's like, shut up.
Yeah, that was
Now
when
we're
they were the
talking
word
about
marks.
them.
She's like,
Yeah.
oh, they're called word marks. And word marks is with a Y. So WYRDMARKS.
Surprisingly, I had no problem pronouncing those.
Yeah, I wanted to say weird marks.
Oh.
That's what I wanted personally, but I found out that was not the case. So Selena then finds a secret door in her room that leads to the underground tunnels that eventually lead outside, which is handy for her. She ponders their use and she's like, maybe I could leave. But meanwhile, everyone is at a feast that Kale wouldn't let her attend. But no worries, he brings her a ring that was the party gift for the girls.
Holy shit. I don't care that she isn't invited to court parties.
Yeah, she was really down about it.
She was.
So she has a dream. Finally, we're about midway through here, and she's like, I have a dream. And it probably isn't a dream, where she's in the tomb of the first king of Otterland and his wife, who's a half fae named Elena. Elena is silver and white and light blue in this dream, and she tells Selena that she has to be champion. And she also has to deal with this thing that's killing all the people.
She's the only one that cares.
Yeah. And also we need to figure out what the creepy clock tower is because it's actually a portal. And finally, we're getting some little bit of plot here, which is that a dead lady in a dream has to tell Selena to actually do something about the gruesome deaths that have been happening around the castle.
We're like halfway through this book right now. And I feel like this is the first important plot point. I feel like everything else was like we were trying to be tricked into reading a different book or something. Yeah,
basically. It's just like another champion gruesomely dies. And Kayla's like, did you do this? As if she's some sort of cannibal. And she thinks about Elena and is like, nah, I don't want to deal with this. And she goes and investigates anyway, and all of her finery, and notices, of course, that all the women look at her because, you know, of course they do. Everyone is looking at Selena.
She's so important.
Yeah.
She's so hot.
Yes.
You're so mad about it.
So then we get immediately a Dorian point of view where he's sparring with Kale, who is so much better at him than this. And of course they discuss Selena, with whom they're both obsessed.
Aw, poor Kale's upset that Dorian's going to get the girl because he's a prince.
And I have to say, Kale needs to get a fucking grip.
Yeah, I agree.
Selena goes and studies this clock tower because, you know, she's been told by a ghost in a dream to do that. And Nehemia is with her and it's like nothing good can come from this clock tower. And then Cain appears to be a dick and tells her he knows who she is. And he calls her a lapdog, which, you know, she kind of is. And Selena finally cements her friendship with Nehemia. And we get another Kale point of view, which points out that she's wild and needs to control her anger to beat Cain. So mainly, one of my main notes here is that Sarah J. Maas novels are so freaking slow and character driven to the point that the plot, the external thing that is driving this forward, is like background noise. Mm-hmm. Like, what's going on? We don't know.
And how are they so character driven when the characters are so boring?
I know, like nothing is happening. All right, so back in the library, Selena is researching word marks and still like she'd rather not deal with the lurking evil. Word apparently means fate or destiny. So supposedly the mother goddess came through a word gate and created this world that they're in. And Kale is like, haha, that's crazy. And then they find this book called The Walking Dead and they all get creeped out by the illustrations.
Cowards. This was the point where I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Things are heating up. There's a zombie book. Yes.
And they
nothing comes
close
of it.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't even think they describe the pictures in it. And for a royal guard, he's not very brave. Like, he gets creeped out by images. I mean, I know they don't have a TV, but You gotta have seen some shit as a guard, you would think, unless he's like one of those sheltered guards who doesn't leave the castle.
He seems very sheltered, but they all kind of seem sheltered. Even Selena seems sheltered.
16.
Which, yeah, because you have to remember that a 16-year-old wrote this, and who is sheltered, generally speaking, but 16-year-olds.
I don't know about you, but I saw the world as a 16-year-old.
Oh, man.
I was so mature.
Didn't we all? We're out
Heavy
there
sarcasm.
living the life. Okay. So Selena goes totally wild trying to play pool because she can't do it. She's not very good at it. And Dorian would point of view to tell her, you're bad at this. Then we get a demo and we know where this is going, obviously, because a 16-year-old wrote this. They play pool and he yearns to know more about her.
They're too similar for me to even enjoy them. They're both just like one flirty person trying to flirt with another flirty person who doesn't care about rules, and just a little spoiled prince and a little spoiled girl. And it's boring to me.
Yeah. So next chapter is sparring. I guess that is the whole test.
I just want to note, your notes from this point on get shorter and shorter.
We are going to be running through this.
Paragraphs of like detail and what we thought was exposition. And then when actual plot things happen, Maura puts one fucking sentence.
Sparring, ruminating. Then I'm like, Keltane, she's busy angling for Dorian and gossiping with the queen mom.
I like it. Straight and to the point.
No, I do too, but it's just kind of funny to point out.
By like chapter 29, I am like so done.
You
I'm
can
like,
tell just looking at your notes. She's sick of it. Do you know who I'm sick of? Keltane. Like her whole point in this book is so useless until like the last couple
very
pages.
last minute. And I'm like, excuse you, her role in the story is to make Selena look good.
Yeah.
So by chapter 30, they have yet another body, this body number 3. Someone determines they're summoning a monster that like is doing this. Only a monster could be doing this. Like no human is possibly doing this thing to these bodies.
Yeah, she's the one who determines this, because on top of being an amazing assassin and having great piano skills, and she's so smart and she's so good at reading and she's so beautiful and her boobs are so big, she's also a pro at reading crime scenes. Some of these skills I think make sense for being an assassin, but the one skill that I feel like she's bad at pool randomly, which
yeah, I feel like there would be some compatibility with the kind of dexterity you need to be assassin and pool.
yeah.
But
So you know what I think she'd be bad at? Reading.
You would think. How would she have had time to learn to read if she's been doing this since she was like, what, 8?
Truly. And I'm trying to think, like, do you need to read to kill people? I guess not.
Not really.
I mean, that's probably a useful skill to have, but
Just need to be interested in it.
yeah.
We just want her to be a dumb idiot, I guess.
But more importantly right now, like after she's determined like a monster must have been summoned to do this, Dorian's like, I don't care.
He doesn't care about anything.
Dorian's just like, tra la la. If it doesn't have to do with Selena, immediately I'm not interested.
He cares about getting his dick wet. And that's it.
That's pretty much his whole thing. So Elena visits yet again and vaguely tells her how to cheat in the next test, which is poisons. And she wins mainly because she sees what someone else does. And she's like, oh, because he did it. This must be that.
One of the competitors who's like a child is good at poisons, I think.
Yeah,
I think
she's
that's
bad at
Nox.
poisons. I think, yeah, it's Nox.
Oh, is it? I thought Nox was like the man who I thought was going to be a love interest, but was
Oh,
not.
I did too. I don't think that's Nox though, right? His name was like Robin or something. I think I'm pulling that out of my ass.
No, I think it was Nox. He was kind of the friend who could have been a love interest, but then he
ran
not.
away.
Yeah,
All
he
right.
ran. She gets a puppy from Dorian. So now we've moved on to we've given you a puppy.
So weird.
Because
What the fuck is she gonna do with the dog?
I know, right?
Also, what did you picture this dog as?
Like a healer type of creature.
Like a hunting dog is
Yeah.
what I had. Like
Yeah,
a
that's what I
spaniel.
thought too. And then I saw this one fan art, and it was good fan art, but it was like a golden retriever.
Why not? Why not? If they wanted to be a golden retriever, more power to them. So, all right. By chapter 33, Keltane gets high.
I think she's always high.
Yeah, I think she is too. She's
But this is our first
She's on like
confirmation.
opium or something, and she's talking with Parrington about how Selena isn't to be trusted with Dorian. And then Nehemia gets word that Otterland soldiers murdered a bunch of rebels in her country, so she's super upset. Then, randomly, in chapter 34, Selena has cramps. Her period has come back.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Well, it's proving that she can procreate.
Is this is this the like really lame attempt at a hurt comfort chapter?
I think so, because Dorian appears to be a playboy and then shows his soft side, and she learns about the Christmas ball, and, wow, so romance. And then Selena finds word marks under her bed, and she finds Nehemia in the library reading books that she shouldn't be able to read because remember, she's like kind of learning the language, so now she's suspicious of Nehemia.
Well, Nehemia's hella suspicious,
So Dorian goes ahead and gives her this puppy that she promised her for Yulemas. And she thinks Nehemia is behind the murders, so she decides to infiltrate the ball, which is where Nehemia will be. Then basically we get an unnecessary chapter at church where they're like, this is the Christmas special or whatever. And
like church, it's boring.
Yeah. And so we totally skipped through that. Like that was totally unnecessary. And then they get to the ball. And nothing really happens. Kale's annoyed. Nehemia acts normal. Dorian asks her to dance. She decides that she wants Dorian. Remember that she was supposed to go to the ball to solve the murders, but that does not happen.
No.
Dorian then kisses her. Everyone be jealous.
Poor Kale. She didn't pick him.
Yeah, I know.
But if she had to end up with either of them, I wish it was Kale.
Yeah,
Again.
Poor guy. He didn't end up with the filthy, barfing assassin.
Yeah. Sad for Kale. So in chapter 40, Kaltane decides she wants to do away with Selena. She's like, I'm done with this girl.
Finally, Kaltane has a purpose.
Yep, this is her purpose. Then Selena finds evidence that someone is using the word mark to take strength from the victims that have been dying. So she goes into the tunnels and finds Cain, who's there. Cain is calling a monster, which attacks her, and then she just kills it because, she's an assassin.
She's the best one.
Yeah, and but, she does get hurt, so Nehemia nurses her back to health, and then they clear the air. She's like, I'm not doing this. And she's like, I know, it's Cain. So Kale is then further jealous of Dorian because he gets all of her attention. Then the king shows up, and everyone's like, oh my gosh. Nox finds out who she is and takes her advice and runs away. Kaltane is smoking yet more opium and having headaches, and so she kisses Dorian, and then, oh no, wait. Oh my God, I should probably have actually written more about this, but I didn't want to because it was so boring.
No, you shouldn't have.
And I just want to say, my note under this is I love that it's obvious that you got tired of this book.
Yeah, I know, because it's like this is what it looks like right now.
It's just phrases.
Yeah.
They're not even full sentences.
Literally what I wrote here is Nox finds out who she is and takes her advice to run away. Kaltane is smoking more opium, having headaches, kissing with Dorian. Nothing really happens.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Right to the point, succinct. Tells me what happens.
Then what I wrote for chapter 47 is everyone's getting introspective. The duel starts. Okay, so basically Selena gets drugged and Cain beats the shit out of her and she has some visions of demons. Or maybe they're real. She doesn't really know because she's drugged.
He beats the shit out of her for like a really, really long time. I found myself getting frustrated because this is the first book in this series and I know she's not going to die.
No,
just
of course
like
not.
Get to the part where we know that she's saved.
I love that while you were reading this, you texted us and you were like, when does this fucking fight end?
It went on way, way too long. Like, I normally enjoy the action sequences of these books. It was like, oh God, finally. But this was bad. This was bad.
Same.
will
I
also
was looking
say-
forward to that. I'm like, finally, there's some action scene.
Yeah.
She's going to beat up Cain. This is going to be great. And then this is what we get.
Yeah, and like
it was-
I get that they had to have her get beat up so that
Yeah.
what can happen happens, but they could have done it way quicker.
Right.
Absolutely.
And also, it was messy because she was drugged during it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like clear cut what was happening, at least to me.
Yeah,
I
well-
also will admit I was super tired of this book and I started rewatching Bridgerton while I was reading it. So my attention was split.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that, like, she gets drugged. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter if she was drugged or not. I still have no idea how good she is as an assassin.
Yeah.
You're sitting there telling me that she could have beaten Cain, like, with her arms tied behind her back.
And she's getting
Well,
the shit beat out of her.
Yeah.
Well, also, you already have the layer of the fact that Cain has been magically juicing himself.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
So I don't. It was never going to be a fair fight, so it wasn't that interesting to
Right.
watch.
Yeah, so Cain has been like taking all the power of the previous competitors. He's been killing with like this magical monster he's been calling from some other place.
Do you think magical steroids give you the same side effects as real steroids do?
I hope so.
I mean, he seemed pretty
Well, it did happen,
Ragey.
right? Because they said that he was getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And like
And you get
that's-
like pimples, and don't you also
Yeah.
get like other weird?
he definitely had like a Barry Bonds physique at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Basically, this fight ends by Deus Ex Machina. Like, Elena shows up out of nowhere and removes the poison from Selena's blood. So, Caltaine then gets double-crossed by the Duke, Pennington, and accused of poisoning Selena.
Which she did on his command.
Yes.
Right?
So, yep. No one knows what's happening at this point, and it's just like, oh, well, she won. Yay. And then Cain is killed by Kale in a fit of rage. So, it turns out, and this is the moment where I had like a small fit, is it turns out that Nehemia has been saving Selena's ass this entire book because she was the one putting the word marks underneath Selena's bed, and she was the one ensuring that Selena wasn't going to die by this monster that was like lurking around via Cain. And I'm like, God damn it. What a great assassin, you guys. Because not only was Selena the one that was like, she found the word mark under her bed and she was like erasing it every single night. So then Nehemia had to find a way back in and put the word mark back there. And I'm like, God damn, Nehemia. You were really like, the best
She's
one
the
here.
true assassin.
Yeah. So the king and Pennington basically are behind everything.
Yeah, it turns out that magic is back, but only for the rich and powerful.
Absolutely.
Isn't that how it is in real life, though?
Yep. So she gets cozy with Kale a little bit before she winds up getting this contract from the king, which is like she has to work with him for 4 years, not 5 or 6. I don't know why that happened. And then she breaks up with Dorian. She's like, dude, I am your dad's assassin. I can't be your plaything, which is sad for Dorian. But she tells Kale that she broke up with Dorian, and then she wraps things up with Elena, and then she signs her contract with the king, who tells her that if she fucks up, he will kill everyone that she knows. So, yay, ending.
It's over.
Yay.
Yeah, except for the fact that there's like a shit ton more books in
Yeah, I'm
this
starting.
series.
I can't. just got the second book from the library.
Yeah. Okay. So let's wrap up. How do we feel about this book? Who wants to go first?
Tabitha, go first.
Tabitha, you go for it.
All right. If the author was really 16 when she wrote this, then fine. That makes perfect sense, and I blame the publishers for this happening to me. It's just so immature as to be ridiculous. You can't just tell the audience how cool and badass someone is. You have to show me. But this book starts with her badass days behind her, and we're in her reading till 4 a.m. ball gown wearing, barfing while running, fretting over boys' days. Not long after I read this, I recommended the Green Rider series by Kristen Britton to Maura as being similar, but a little better. I read the Green Rider series back in 2012, so 2024 me could heavily disagree, but I think it might be a better alternative to this. Guys, I think I just don't like Sarah J. Maas books.
I think you might be
that,
right.
Yeah, that might be coming out.
Yeah.
I read this book back in 2015, and I couldn't remember literally anything happening. I actually had purchased the book, and I pulled it up on Kindle, and it was like 100% complete. So rereading it now, 2024 me, it was written by a 16-year-old, and it feels like it. Writing my wrap up about this a month later, I couldn't tell you what happened. I mean, so many things happened but didn't happen. Shouldn't have happened. So every time the characters were like reacting to each other, everything about it just felt very immature. The setup was cool. It could have been cool.
It could have been.
She starts off as like this god level assassin, but then she goes through like a quarter life crisis and mental breakdown during the middle of it. I don't know. I do kind of like that she didn't end up with either of the two love interests, or what could have been love interest, at least in this book. But I think all of the characters should have gone on a gap year so they could have experienced the world. And
I think Sarah J. Maas should have experienced a gap year.
yeah, I mean, I hope at least at some point she's done some traveling. But
Oh, I know she has. She's fine. Don't worry about her.
oh, I mean, I'm not worried about her now, but
no one should be worried about her. She's
probably
living
makes
a
so
great
much
life.
money.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think 2012 was just a different time. Like, I'm reading this all the way back in 2024, which is such a different landscape in terms of what I expect from YA books today.
Yeah.
Like, there are a few things I liked here, and that the main character is just gloriously insufferable, and the book just lets her be that way. So, like, good for her. There's period pain mentioned in here, which seems wildly out of place for YA books at the time, but, great, good for it. I mean, the things that I didn't like, though, like, let's talk about how mismarketed this book is, because it promises me best assassin in the world, and I got Cinderella without the things that make Cinderella compelling. Also, let's talk about the fact that literally no one, and even seemingly the author herself, wanted to actually solve the main mystery in this book. like a ghost has to force Selena to do something about the murders, and Selena is like, man, do I really have to? And I'm like, I don't know. Since the murders are your competitors, it would seem to be in your interest to figure it out before you're the one who's dead, because you don't seem to be as capable as your reputation claims, Selena. Like, what are you doing? And also, why is there even a romance with Dorian? Was that even believable? Why did that happen? And, you know, yeah, because it's a Cinderella retelling, obviously. That seems to be the only thing that was Cinderella retelling about it. But then she's like, nah, don't need you. So, like, was Dorian really that necessary?
No.
Yeah, did
so
we
much
need him?
was unnecessary.
So I just sort of felt like the whole book was just like one big bait and switch, and I am just fascinated by how big this made her. Like, this is her first book.
I know.
And I'm like, how?
I mean,
want to know, how did this happen?
Yeah, everyone I've talked to have read the series, and they say it gets so much better, which, like, the bar is so low, guys. It has to get better. But, you know.
Yeah, I have heard that too, that this book, I mean...
Couldn't we have rewritten this first one or done something?
Yeah, I feel like in 2012, publishing was flush with so much money from Twilight and Hunger Games that it could just throw money at whatever they thought was compelling enough. And...
What was compelling in this?
I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure... And you know what? It's probably that she came with an audience. Now that I'm thinking about it. Like, she had built an audience from fiction press.
Yeah.
And I think publishing, as we all know, will throw money at anything that comes with a built-in audience.
True.
So,
good point.
As we've seen multiple times over and over again.
Recently with...
Yeah, with Manacled.
With Manacled.
Manacled sold for $10 million.
That's fucking crazy.
I know. So
I feel like I have to read it now.
I don't know if I can do it.
I'm saying a hard no for the podcast.
Yeah, no.
You can read it on
I'll
your
read it
own.
on my own, but not for the podcast.
Maybe, I don't know.
It goes against, it already has like trigger warnings for the stuff that we're not interested in reading.
Yeah,
it's
not.
honestly
exactly.
It's
got a trigger warning for something I don't want to read, which is why I haven't, but I'm gonna do it.
I won't read The Handmaid's Tale because of the things I don't like in the story, so I'm definitely not reading the fan fiction of Handmaid's Tale.
$10 million.
I mean, good for her. I'm proud of her.
Good for her, but I'm mad at the publish industry for that one.
Yeah.
So, okay, who are we in this book? Anyone want to go first?
I need to stop doing this after you guys do it. This is always the last thing I do, and you guys always pick the good people, and then I
got to get your notes done.
You got to get in there.
Well, the worst part is my notes were done, and then I just didn't do this part for some reason. So, anyways, I'm gonna go first now. I think I'm Dorian, even though I shit on him the whole time. I'm not like a flirty person in general, I don't believe, but I also don't like following rules. I think I'm spoiled, and I get bored with sports and competitions. I also just love stirring shit up so I can have a good time. And I think that's exactly what he did with bringing Selena here. He was like, my dad's going to hate this.
I think that's exactly why he did it. He just wanted to be a jerk.
Tabitha?
I'm the guy in chapter 16 who tries to make a break for it and gets killed. I know what I'm about, and performing for nobility ain't it.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. These are both perfect.
Thank you.
So I'm Selena. I'm gonna admit that right up front. Like, I like reading, I like sleeping, I like laying around doing nothing.
Are you a secret assassin?
I am not, which I think is
well,
also
if she
true
was
for
a
her.
secret assassin, we would know about it.
Yeah, right. I could say, yeah, I am the most famous secret assassin you've ever met. And would you know? No, you wouldn't. So yeah, I am. That's his things. So, yeah, I also sometimes think I'm capable of doing things I really can't do, which as far as I know, is Selena. So,
and you've thrown up after you've run.
And I haven't. I wanted to though. I wanted to. Like, I
closer
felt
than
like
both
it.
of us.
I was just like, this is mile number 10. I'm tired. So yeah, that's me. That's us.
All right, that's Throne of Glass. We also need to get better.
We need to get way better at
outros.
We're so bad at outros, but like.
I don't know what to say at this point.
I'm not. My family in general is not good at saying goodbyes. We just like it takes 30 minutes. But like the only way to get out of things is I Irish goodbye everything.
I know. We were usually like, I want to hug all of you and say goodbye. I'll see you next time.
5 times. Yeah.
I guess for like the wrap up part, we could talk about whether or not we recommend the book. But I mean, you've all heard me at this point. I'm hypercritical of everything. So if you want to read the book, fine.
Yeah, go for it.
If you enjoy it, I won't hold that against you.
Oh my God. Look, so many people have already read this book.
About it.
Yeah.
So many people have already read it. Like how many million ratings? Yeah. So it's a lot of people.
I'm going to say read everything. I purposely made my friend read the worst book ever. It was like this weird Chris Evans fan fiction. It was so unbelievably bad. Wrecked it to her by saying, I hate this book. I think it's terrible.
Yeah.
And you have to read it so we can suffer together.
Hey,
so
listen.
I want everyone to read every single book that we've read.
Absolutely.
And if you don't want to read it, that's basically what our podcast is
same,
for.
but
it
like,
goes through everything that happens.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it anymore.
No.
But also, like, negative and critical reviews are sometimes positive reviews for people. You know,
Yeah.
like, they're like, yeah, I totally want to read this now that this
I
really
also-
negative review hated it.
Yeah, I also worry that if we say we don't rec a book, that people are going to think we're straight up haters. But I criticize out of love.
Yeah.
I really
Don't we
like the
all?
ACOTAR series.
Quivering the shaky
I don't know if I do it out of love, but again, I think as I've definitely on purpose read things that I don't like, that I knew were stupid, and I've enjoyed them. So again, read what you enjoy. I'm not going to judge.
I regularly read Dramini fan fiction.
Oh my
you know,
God,
who
yeah.
am I to judge? I've read Naruto fan fiction at one time. I was 13, but
I have read so much crap in my life and liked it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's our
Do what
moral.
brings you joy.
is- Yeah, do what brings you joy.
Do what brings you joy.
Don't let the haters, me, bring
Yeah,
you down.
us.
Listen, we have Tabitha here for a reason. She keeps us, sane.
Yeah, she does.
All right, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Follow us on TikTok.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.